In the complex and often murky world of Indonesian law, some voices dare to speak out against the silence. One such voice belongs to Amstrong Sembiring, an advocate whose name has become synonymous with a courageous critique of the justice system. His journey is not just a professional one, it is a personal crusade, born from deep-seated unease. This profound disquiet led him to pen a book in 2014, a powerful testament titled. The title itself, translating to a silent voice, from the unease about legal justice. The judicial and legal mafia haunting the West Jakarta District Court, is a stark declaration of his mission. It was not written for fame or fortune, but as a necessary outburst against a system he felt was failing its people. The decision to write a book was a culmination of years spent navigating the corridors of justice, witnessing firsthand a reality far removed from the ideals taught in law school. Amstrong felt a growing sense of disappointment, a sorrow that settled deep within him as he observed how the scales of justice could be tipped not by evidence or truth, but by power and money. He saw how ordinary citizens, seeking fairness and protection, were often left bewildered and defeated by a labyrinthine process that seemed rigged from the start. This was not the justice he had sworn to uphold. The book became his platform, his way of breaking the silence and giving voice to the frustrations shared by many, but spoken by few. It was a refusal to remain a passive observer in the face of systemic decay. His focus on the West Jakarta District Court was not arbitrary. It was a microcosm of a larger national problem, a place where he personally witnessed the troubling dynamics of what he terms the legal mafia. These were not phantoms, but tangible networks of individuals who manipulated legal processes for personal gain. He saw cases where the law was bent, where verdicts seemed predetermined, and where the pursuit of truth was secondary to transactional arrangements. This environment created a profound sense of anxiety. For an advocate who believes in the sanctity of the law, seeing it so blatantly corrupted was a source of constant professional and personal anguish, compelling him to document these phenomena for the public to see and understand. The book, therefore, is more than just a collection of observations. It is an act of resistance. It is a detailed chronicle of a system in distress, a cry for help on behalf of a public losing faith in one of its most critical institutions. Amstrong Sembiring understood that to bring about change, the problem had to be named and exposed. He chose to articulate the silent screams of injustice, hoping that by amplifying these whispers, he could spark a conversation and ignite a movement toward reform. His writing was a deliberate step out of the shadows, challenging the very culture of impunity that allowed such practices to thrive and persist within the hallowed halls of justice. The term legal mafia is a heavy one, evoking images of a shadowy underworld operating within the state's most sacred institutions. For Amstrong, this was not a metaphor, but a lived reality. His days in court were often filled with situations that made him deeply uneasy. He described an atmosphere where brokers and fixers loitered with unnerving confidence, offering to manage cases for a price. These individuals acted as intermediaries between desperate justice seekers and compromised officials, creating a marketplace where verdicts were allegedly for sale. He saw how case files could be mysteriously delayed or expedited, and how crucial evidence could be overlooked or misinterpreted, all depending on who was pulling the strings behind the scenes. This wasn't justice. It was a perversion of it, a transactional theater that left him feeling profoundly disturbed and helpless. This disillusionment fueled his critical perspective on various national legal issues long after his book was published. When he analyzed the high-profile domestic dispute involving Tisha Ernie, Amy BMJ, and Aiden Wong in 2024, his focus was squarely on the clear application of criminal law. He pointed to the potential charges of adultery under the criminal code, urging the police to handle the case professionally and without external influence. This stance highlighted his core belief: the law must be applied equally and transparently to all, regardless of their public status or nationality. His insistence on by-the-book procedure was a direct challenge to the tendency for high-profile cases to be swayed by public opinion or backroom deals, a symptom of the very mafia he fought against. His critical eye also turned to the highest levels of the judiciary, as seen in his pessimism regarding the 2024 presidential election dispute at the Constitutional Court. J.J. Armstrong argued that the court was constrained by regulations that limited its scope to mere numerical results, preventing it from addressing a more substantive injustice, structured, systematic, and massive electoral violations. He lamented the short time frame for the trial, deeming it insufficient for a truly just outcome. This was another example of his core anxiety, that the system itself, with its rigid procedures, could become a barrier to achieving substantive justice. He saw a judiciary so bound by formality that it risked ignoring the spirit of the law, a perfect breeding ground for mafias who exploit such legalistic loopholes. These instances, from the court corridors to the Constitutional Court, painted a consistent picture of his deep-seated concerns. The legal mafia, in his view, thrived not only through overt bribery, but also through the subtle manipulation of procedures, the exploitation of legal ambiguities, and the cultivation of a culture of impunity. His fight was not just against corrupt individuals, but against a corrupting system. The anxiety he felt was for the soul of Indonesia's legal future, a future he saw being eroded by these clandestine forces that treated justice not as a right to be upheld, but as a commodity to be traded to the highest bidder. Despite the pervasive gloom that colored his observations, J.J. Amstrong Sembiring never succumbed to complete despair. At the heart of his crusade was an unwavering hope, a deeply held conviction that a just and equitable legal system in Indonesia was not an impossible dream. This hope was the engine driving his advocacy, his writing, and his public commentary. He envisioned a future where the courts were true sanctuaries of justice, where every citizen, regardless of their wealth or status, could stand on equal footing before the law. This dream was not of a perfect system, but of one that was fundamentally fair, transparent, and accountable to the people it was meant to serve. He believed that the first step towards this ideal was acknowledging the painful truth of its current state. His activism extended beyond critiquing the courts. It was about championing the rights of all citizens to be recognized and protected by the state. This was evident in his advocacy for the constitutional rights of the Orthodox Christian community in late 2024. He argued passionately that they, like all other citizens, should have the right to have their religious identity officially recorded on their state documents, such as the KTP. By referencing a previous Constitutional Court ruling that granted similar rights to adherents of indigenous beliefs, he was pushing for a broader, more inclusive interpretation of religious freedom and equality. This was his vision in action, a legal system that actively expands justice and pluralism, rather than one that merely maintains a restrictive status quo. This persistent push for substantive justice revealed the core of his philosophy. For Sembiring, the law should not be a rigid set of rules applied without context or conscience. It should be a living instrument for achieving fairness and upholding human dignity. His frustration with the Constitutional Court's handling of the election dispute stemmed from this belief. He urged the justices to look beyond procedural technicalities and embrace their role as guardians of substantive justice. He dreamt of a judiciary brave enough to tackle the root causes of injustice, even if it meant challenging established norms or powerful interests. His hope was pinned on the possibility of a paradigm shift, where legal professionals would prioritize justice over procedure. Ultimately, J.J. Armstrong's dream for Indonesia is one where integrity is restored to the legal profession. He longs for a day when the title of advocate or judge is synonymous with honor, not suspicion. He hopes for a new generation of legal practitioners who enter the field with a genuine desire to serve the public and uphold the rule of law. His own actions, writing his book, speaking out on controversial cases, and championing the rights of minorities, were all efforts to model this ideal. He believed that by consistently shining a light on both the problems and the potential for change, he could inspire others to join the fight for a better, more just Indonesia. The final message of J.J. Armstrong Sembiring's long and arduous struggle is a powerful call to action, a summons directed at every individual within the legal ecosystem and the public at large. He concludes that the antidote to the poison of the legal mafia is not a complex new regulation or another supervisory body, but the simple yet profound virtues of honesty and professionalism. He implores his fellow advocates, prosecutors, and judges to look inward and rediscover the moral compass that should guide their work. He argues that the erosion of justice begins with small compromises, a willingness to look the other way, a desire for personal convenience over professional duty. The fight back, therefore, must begin with a personal commitment to unwavering integrity in every case, every document, and every decision. This call for professionalism is deeply intertwined with the need for immense courage. Standing up to a well-entrenched system of corruption is not for the faint of heart. It requires a willingness to face intimidation, professional ostracism, and potential threats. Sembiring understands that challenging the legal mafia means making powerful enemies. Yet, he insists that this bravery is non-negotiable if any meaningful change is to occur. It is the courage to say no to illicit offers, the courage to report misconduct, and the courage to pursue a just outcome even when it is the more difficult path. He posits that a few brave individuals can create ripples of change, inspiring others to stand with them, and gradually dismantling the culture of fear that allows corruption to flourish. This message is not just for legal professionals, it is also for the Indonesian people. Sembiring's work serves to empower citizens by educating them about the inner workings of the justice system, including its flaws. An informed public is a powerful ally in the fight against corruption. When people understand their rights and recognize the signs of a compromised legal process, they are better equipped to demand accountability. He encourages a culture of public scrutiny, where the actions of the courts and law enforcement are watched closely. The fight for a clean legal system is a collective responsibility, and public pressure is an essential component in forcing institutions to reform from within. In the end, Amstrong Sembiring's narrative is a blueprint for the future of Indonesian justice. It is a future built on the bedrock of honesty, fortified by unwavering professionalism, and realized through collective courage. His life's work is a testament to the idea that one person's voice, born from unease and fueled by hope, can challenge the darkest corners of a flawed system. The path is long and fraught with obstacles, but his message is clear. The fight against the legal mafia is a fight for the very soul of the nation. It is a necessary struggle to ensure that the promise of justice for all is not just a hollow phrase, but a lived reality for all Indonesians.